Hello for another Spider-Man game. The last one
Oh, great.
was the one.
Okay, we're gonna watch Spider-Man Homecoming?
Yay!
This
Pedro,
was,
wrong Marvel intro.
This was an interesting beast. Around this time, the Sam Raimi games had already been done. So Activision, in order to not make the license expire, started making, having a studio called Beanox, making games on their own using original stories. They were a consultant with some actual comic book writers, but the stories were almost entirely original. This is called Spider-Man Shadow Dimension, or Spider-Man Dimensions in some countries in Europe, I don't know how much. And it's a story about a crossover between 4 different universes, which will be explained in a second. For now, we're just gonna watch the intro. Bear with me, Dweebs and Shira, because on this, for the intro alone, there are not available subtitles, but I turned them on almost immediately. So bear with me on this. Alright, here we go. Also, in case you wonder, that's Madam Web from...
Madam Web, yeah.
Yeah, Madam
Web. Mostly
yeah.
famous for from the 90s cartoon.
Was she in the comics?
Yes.
And it's... What's a Marvel game without Stan Lee's narration?
Yay!
Well, we have that at least.
With our very existence. Who or what?
So, surprising enough, the main villain of this game is actually Mysterio.
Yep.
Oh, cool.
Which is weird because Mysterio would be the main villain of another game of Spider-Man. Friend or foe. Just weird, I mean...
So in a typical 6-2-1-6 standard Marvel Earth, we start with a very simple heist from villain, Spider-Man S2. So the main Spider-Man in this case is voiced by Neil Patrick Harris.
Yep.
I will explain more about the voice. I will explain more about the behind-the-scenes voice acting, but for now, just watch what happens.
But if you ask me,
Didn't Neil Patrick Harris voice Spider-Man before?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, Dweebs, I'm gonna explain in a bit, don't worry.
nah, souvenirs are available in the gift shop.
So basically, this is the best disguised Carl I've ever
So
had.
it's the best kind of crowd.
So Spider-Man's gonna be even more of a snarky asshole.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's
That
a
is...
lot of snarkiness in this game, Shiro, I just say that.
Okay. For better or for worse?
But the
better.
tablet seems to have interesting reaction, but thanks to Spider-Man's idiocy, it gets shattered promptly. Which is not good for a Marvel artifact. And it just goes away. Okay.
You know, I had to wonder,
Yeah.
what was up with Activision making Mysterio the main villain of Spider-Man
I
games?
have no idea.
Madam Web.
And this is Madam Web. I forgot what's the official name of voice actress. For context, she's the same voice as Maleficent in Kingdom Hearts.
Of all the mystic
Madam Web, let me see.
You shattered it.
Yeah, sorry about
This
that.
in turn
Guess they don't make
causes
shadows
some
like we used
ruckus
to,
in
huh?
multiple dimensions, not just the current Marvel one. So Madam Web is recruiting several Spider-Men in order to actually fix the tablet and not allow the dimensions to fall into chaos.
Hey, it's like a better version of...
Suzanne Blakesley.
Thanks.
Hey, it's like
Oh
a
yeah,
better...
also small fan service with Spider-Ham,
Yeah.
don't mind.
Let's see, crossover Spider-Man who aren't X stuff. It's like a better version of Spideyverse. Oh wait, that's right. This came out years
And
before
that's also,
Spideyverse.
that's also ironic because Marvel, when official Marvel writers, when talk about this game, they said that they wouldn't have even bother to make a proper Spider-Man crossover with kind, and then Spider-Verse happened.
You must gather
Yeah.
So essentially, this is how it's gonna happen. There will be several levels. Three, aside from the tutorial, 3 levels for each type of Spider-Man. For a total of 12 levels, plus the final boss encounters with Mysterio at the end.
Might as well sum it up for you. Of course, here we're in the traditional Spider-Man universe,
Yeah.
the Amazing Spider-Man universe, which is the typical thing you think of with the 616 universe.
And as I mentioned,
No, it's also-
Spider-Man. Yeah, if we use a special type of style, artistic style for each universe. In this case, it's a very comic book style cell shade.
Which is weird
The
because
control-
Ultimate
the
also
controls
uses a
work,
similar one, although to be fair, I'll go more into detail about why that is the way it is
Controls
later.
work similar to the previous Spider-Man games, particularly Web of Shadows and the Sam Raimi games.
I don't know. Doesn't Web of Shadows have a bit more width to it, whereas this one is a bit more linear?
It doesn't. Well, this game doesn't have the combat on the surfaces, granted, but otherwise the swinging and a lot of animations are used from that.
There's no Bruce Campbell though.
No.
That was just a warm-up.
Anyway, as mentioned, this particular Spidey is voiced by Neil Patrick Harris. Why? Because Neil Patrick Harris voiced Spider-Man in a very short-lived animated series called Spider-Man: The New Animated Series.
The context of that series is like, well, back in the day, it was the sequel to the first Spider-Man Raimi film, hence why it takes a lot of plot elements from it. However, it didn't do. However, after the first season, it ended on quite a downer note, actually. And well, that's all you need to know.
So, now, thanks to the powers of Madame Web, the spider sense has been kind of reconverted. Instead of just perceiving danger, here it functions similar to detective mode in Batman Arkham Asylum, in the Batman Arkham games. It functions kind of like an X-ray mode, which highlights enemies and some destructible objects. So it comes in and in order when you're a bit of loss, you need to see. Not very really as a danger, because the levels compared to, instead of being open world like the previous games, these levels follow a more simple structure.
Hey, look what I found.
Excellent work.
Now for the next one. The next one, things start to get a bit complicated, because we're doing the Ultimate Universe, which is currently defunct, by the way. Which is, in this Spider-Man is voiced by Josh Keaton. I don't really need to see much, because Josh Keaton voiced a lot of iterations of Spider-Man.
To the point where he was pretty much the go-to Spider-Man voice actor until Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite ruined things.
My psychic powers will keep it from overwhelming.
So, in order to, since in
They
the Ultimate Universe, Peter Parker was relatively similar to his original counterpart, in order to differentiate him a bit, also that ass, they differentiate him by having him the black suit, which, if you don't remember the third Sam Raimi movie, for example, is an alien symbiote that grants Spider-Man superpower, more extra superpowers like more strength and durability. Madame Web conveniently says that she deactivated these dangerous side effects, so we're not gonna have the whole dilemma of the symbionts that try to consume Spider-Man's mind or some shit like that.
Which is kind of weird, because remember, this is Ultimate Universe. In the Ultimate Universe, the suit is actually a special thing made to cure cancer by Peter Parker's father and Eddie Brock's father. So at this point, Eddie Brock should have Venom and should be missing, but I guess now the suit's off him.
We're forgetting about that. Yes, Reeves?
That's good. So this one's voiced by Josh Keaton now.
Yes.
I gotta admit,
Okay.
He also uses a cell shade, but it's a bit more realistic. It's not the same bordered and pastel as the Amazing Universe.
I look forward to when we get to Noir Spider-Man, because the guy they got to voice him is the one I recognize the most.
Yeah,
course.
and
Anyway.
it's also my favorite of the bunch, so I'm with you.
Now, a bit of context with this is actually using some of the engine from the Ultimate Spider-Man game. See, basically, back in the day, Ultimate Spider-Man was essentially a Venom game. But then somebody spoke up and they had to include a Spider-Man part, so the Spider-Man stuff was kinda tacked on.
Next one of my absolute favorite, actually my favorite comic universe of a bunch of Marvel, the 2099 universe. Essentially, this is Marvel trying to do Blade Runner, and it's amazing as it sounds.
Oh yeah.
So the Spider-Man, essentially, since it's a big jump in the future, this Spider-Man is not a Peter Parker equivalent, but a Puerto Rican guy, Miguel O'Hara. In this case, he's voiced by...
Oh god, Alchemax!
Dan Gilvezan, which is the Spider-Man of the Spider-Man is Amazing Friends cartoon.
Back in 1981.
Oh,
yeah, the
god.
Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Okay.
So the prices roll 30 years later.
So,
this particular tutorial is for combat, so go on, Joe.
So what we're doing right now is that we're trying to get into Alchemax. Let's just say anyone who's played Age of Time really does not like Alchemax for a very good reason.
Well, even in general, essentially in the 2000, and I've kind of mentioned this right in some other game parts, but in the 2099 universe, there's this kind of rule that there's this big corporation, the Alchemax, which is the equivalent of Shinra, of Final Fantasy VII, which produce all sorts of weird, noxious stuff, and has control of the police of the 2099 universe, so they can do whatever they want, and they can arrest you if they want. It's a typical dark cyberpunk stuff.
They're essentially
So, and there's a running joke that if there is a fault of something evil approaching, it's Alchemac's fault.
So what makes this universe your favourite?
The setting alone, and what we did with it. The Spider-Man series is actually really good, for the comic book one I mean, but my absolute favorite one and my favorite comic book of all time is the Doom 2099 series. Go read it if you haven't. It's incredible.
They actually have quite a few good, interesting takes on a lot of the villains, too, in the future-wise. Let's just say, Alchemax likes to mess with people genetically. They're basically Oscorp, but on steroids. Not only do they have a lot of political police influence, but they also have control over the most advanced of genetics and technology.
Basically, if you know, in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, they kind of implied that almost all the villains from Spider-Man were some sort of results because of Oscorp. It's kind of the same thing here, just
but done
with,
better.
Alchemax.
Well, Amazing Spider-Man 2 established that, I think.
Yeah,
Well,
and the
that's what he
video
said,
game also
yeah.
expanded that. Anyway,
Oh god, the video game of Amazing Spider-Man 2 sucked, but
yeah.
anyway.
It's all for this tutorial. For the combat, I'm going to explain. There's be enough time to explain more about the combat in later parts anyway. And for the last one, my favorite of this game, but not for the comic book series, Spider-Man Noir.
Okay,
In this
Spider-Man
case,
Noir.
voiced by Christopher Daniel Barnes.
Who voiced him in the 1994 series.
Yep,
Yep.
that ever so
And
famous
since it's-
series.
Since it's a noir-styled universe, everything is styled as accordingly. First, almost everything is or with a sepia tone. Second, there's a lot of pretentious narration, but it just works here.
Yeah.
Third, the gameplay is radically different. You still have the combat and the swinging when you want, but the main focus is stealth and silent takedowns. Now I know what you're thinking. Theo, this is a shameless ripoff of Batman Arkham Asylum. What were they thinking? Well, I'll tell you what. The two games were developed at the same time, so you can't really tell who copied who.
It certainly sounds a lot similar, yet obviously a little bit older than his 1994 voice.
That's the
Remember,
idea.
they needed to give a specific kind of tone to this particular Peter Parker. Fun fact, also, the original Spider-Man Noir did not have that much of his web power, but in order to adapt his style similar to the other Spider-Man, we just say that Van Web gave him this ability.
That is actually a nice touch to the stories. It's like, well, you know, they acknowledge the
They give
differences, but they give some
explanation,
reasons why.
Now, in this particular section, thanks to due to the stealth, your spider sense will be your vital clue in order to stay hidden. Especially because if you get spotted in the spotlight, you will get caught immediately, and bullets are very dangerous for this case. It's not like, for example, in a case of, oh, they just spot you, you can just run away. No, if they start shooting you, they're gonna hurt a lot to your health bar, even in easy mode. Yeah,
So what's gonna happen if we get another game like this? Are we gonna have a Spider-Man voiced by Tobey Maguire and one voiced by Andrew Garfield?
Who knows?
We might have, but Edge of Time sucked.
Maybe we'll get the absolute bestest one, Drake Bell.
Well, okay. I will set the record straight. Drake Bell was not as bad as we thought he was going to be. In fact, ironically, Ultimate Spider-Man, while it had a sucky very first episode, it did actually even out and get more serious. It's kind of like Batman the Brave and the Bold, although admittedly Batman the Brave and the Bold was actually good
They ruined
in the
that
first place.
pool.
Well,
That's a topic for another day.
see,
Also,
that was kind of a trend, though. It's like, well, you had shows like Batman the Brave and the Bold and Ultimate Spider-Man. Yeah, ironically, the show was called Ultimate Spider-Man, whereas Ultimate Spider-Man the comic was one of the more darker and raunchier ones, because Ultimate Universe, more on that later. But essentially, though, both Batman the Brave and the Bold and Ultimate Spider-Man, both, while starting off more cheesy, did get more serious and better later down. The thing
Also,
is,
in terms of video games, also, like what John was mentioning before, they kind of screw up because they used this voice actor for 2099 Spider-Man for Edge of Time.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean,
to be honest, Jova, I wouldn't mind a more comedic Spider-Man series. I guess the problem with Ultimate was the execution.
oh, trust Zips. I do not blame you for having bad first impressions. Like, that show started off clunky. It gets better, but I won't blame you if you're wary of it.
No Spidey.
It's like I said, I don't mind. I guess the problem was just the execution.
The problem was that they were making Spider-Man Deadpool in a show that already had Deadpool.
Anyway, there you go. That's the basic premise. Starting with the next level, we're gonna have to actually get into the thick of it with the first main level of the Amazing Spider-Man, which
In New
essentially
York City.
Actually,
Covered the
no.
first quarter.
Let's just say
Yeah.
that
Oops.
the first level is gonna take us somewhere
So
else.
it's not New York.
Yeah, I know. Trust me, sure. That was as much a shock to me as it probably is to you.
Actually, one of the levels of Amazing Spider-Man is actually set in New York, but in like of a peripheral part of the city.
Have to go and save that.
Essentially, here's how it's gonna follow. One level will have each level will have its own main villain, and which Spider-Man will have to defeat. But due to having different dimensions, they will have different dimension will have a different iteration of a villain that you may recognize, like for example the Goblin, Norman Osborn. But due to how they structure, they will actually structure the level in different ways. For the Amazing Universe, there will be more recognizable ones, but for the other dimensions, we're gonna do some interesting variations to it.
You know the ironic thing with having Mysterio be the main villain of a multiple dimensions plot?
Yeah, I
The
know.
comics
The
would
fact
later
that in
go
the
on to
comics,
do this
he
too.
actually- in the comics, for a while, Mysterio was actually a dimension jumper. He was actually both his normal version and his ultimate version, and kind of masquerade that. But that's a huge topic for another day. For the time being, the next part, which will introduce the very first level, will have the normal Amazing Spider-Man versus Kraven the Hunter. So see you for that.
See ya.
Alright, see ya.
See ya.